Daily Ticker Time to start the final hour. Brought to you, as always, by our good friends at Pelican Brewing. Meet the newest Beak Breaker Hazy Double IPA with bold hops and smooth haze. Crack open a can and celebrate game day in style. Let's talk to our good friend Brady Henderson for the ticker today. Go up to Seattle. Is he or is he not on a boat? We'll find out in a moment. He covers the Seahawks for ESPN. At Brady Henderson on Twitter. You will give him a follow. Brady, good morning to you. Are you on a boat?
I am on a boat, yes. And I will be on a boat probably for the next, I don't know, for the foreseeable future. Because I got a flat tire last night, but mainly because, my third one in a month, if you can believe that. But mainly because, unbelievable. But mainly because I think that something, if not multiple things, could happen with the Seahawks, like, big breaking news here any minute between now and the start of free agency. So I'm going to be glued to my computer, glued to my phones, calling, texting, and maybe writing about some pretty significant Seahawks news.
Well, there's some big Seahawk news and some stuff we need to discuss, but we do need to ask then, what kind of man is Brady Henderson? Did you change your own flat tire, or did you each time, in the bad luck of getting 3, have somebody come out and fix it?
Well, my car, as I learned after, one of these flat tires, is my car did not come with a spare. It came with one of those like, not mechanical, one of the pumps that you basically plug into your adapter in your car, and then you hook it up to the tire and it pumps it up. But a couple of the flat last night was so bad that the air was being pumped in, and the hole was so big in the tire that it was just going right back out. So I had to call AAA. Yeah, it was a bad deal.
This is just brutal, man. As somebody I had 2 flat tires in a span of like a year, and I thought that was bad. That many in that short amount of time. That's brutal luck. But just be thankful at least that nobody got traded while you were in the middle of dealing with the flat tire. So let's get to that. Lockett's released, and in the same day we get a DK Metcalf trade. How did the team react to that? Because I've heard some scuttlebutt that they're not thrilled that it happened on the same day. And are you surprised with where we're at right now with DK Metcalf?
In terms of the Lockett stuff, they were not happy with that. I was told that privately. I think the GM said that on the radio yesterday, that they had, really wanted that day to be all about Lockett and celebrating his 10-year run in Seattle. Now, I don't know that Lockett necessarily was all that upset by it. I heard somebody close to him tell me that, he didn't really care. But I think the Seahawks cared, and whether it was intentional or not, the timing was unfortunate. Now, in terms of DK, I think that this is mostly, the vast majority of this is contract related. I do kind of wonder, though, if there is some, just maybe some bad blood that has built up over the years. And look, this happens sometimes when a really high profile player, wants to be paid and the two sides don't see eye to eye. And I don't think this is a case necessarily of the Seahawks just wanting to move on from DK Metcalf. I think they've made him a pretty strong offer, and he just doesn't see it. He doesn't see that as being in line with what his value is. And so, I do think that this trade is going to happen. I think it's, they're not going to give him away, but I think there's going to be enough interest. If I had to guess, there'd be enough interest in a 27-year-old receiver, who's 6'3", with 4.3 speed and plenty of durability and plenty of production over 6 seasons. I would think that there would be enough for the Seahawks to get a return package that would be worth their while.
Well, kind of a two-parter then. One, when do you think it started building for us to get to this point? I follow what you write and what you cover. I watch the Seahawks play football on Sunday, Monday, or Thursdays. He seemed like he was kind of always trending in a little frustration this year. I don't know if that's an accurate way of saying it, but when did we start getting here, and what is the proper trade stuff to acquire DK? Is it going to involve really a first and the third, or are they willing to settle for something else?
Well, in terms of how it got to this point, I've heard some stuff that he may have been unhappy last season. I don't know enough about that yet to really talk with any level of authority on it. So I'll hold off on that for now. But I do think it's possible that this was something that's been brewing with him. And I still think it's the vast majority of this is just business. It's contract related. But I do wonder if maybe there's been some stuff going on behind the scenes. But I won't speculate on that any further just because I don't know enough about it. In terms of what happens from here, I have said all along that if you're going to trade DK Metcalf, a guy who's still in his prime, and again, healthy, durable, productive, young, all that, you shouldn't do it for less than a first-round pick or something of equivalent value. So even if it's not a first-round pick, maybe it's a second and a third that, if you just look at whatever draft value chart you want to use, that maybe the combined value of those two picks is equivalent to a first-round pick. I just don't think I don't see any sense in, giving him away for anything significantly less than that. So in terms of where he ends up, I think Vegas is a team to keep in mind, just with the Pete Carroll connection. I can't imagine Vegas would want to give up the 6th overall pick, and I don't think that would necessarily be a totally equitable trade. But could Vegas give up, its second rounder, number 37 overall, so an early second, and then maybe one of its 2/3? I think that would be a fair return package, something like that for DK. But just look at the teams that need receiver help. Look at the teams that have the cap space to do a big deal like that. Not that the first-year cap hit, assuming he gets a new deal from that new team. Not that first-year cap hit is, those are typically pretty low anyways. But I think that the one thing that was really telling with John Schneider's interview on his radio show yesterday in Seattle was, he was talking about how he was adamant about how much they need to do what's right for the Seahawks first and foremost, as opposed to DK Metcalf. And when he says it like that, that makes me think that was a conversation that he had with DK Metcalf. And the way I would interpret that conversation is that the Seahawks are going to trade DK to the team that gives them the best return package, not necessarily the team where DK Metcalf wants to play.
Interesting. Brady Henderson is our guest, covering the Seahawks for ESPN, one of our favorites, at Brady Henderson on Twitter. You go give him a follow there. My co-host and I got into a little bit of a debate yesterday about Seattle and just the direction that they're heading, and what a successful year next year would look like. This DK stuff's hanging over their head. We'll see if he's traded, if he's back, how that's all going to shake out. Then he made the argument that if they make the playoffs next year, they won 10 games this year, came damn close. You beat the Giants at home. Hell, you win the division this year. That it would be a huge step and it would be a building block for them as a franchise. And I don't disagree with the entire premise of it. But the biggest issue that I have about them as an organization right now is I don't know what their plan is at the most important position on the field. And so you could tell me they take a step next year, maybe you win 11 games, maybe you make the playoffs, hell, maybe even win a wild card game. You're dealing with maybe a 35-year-old quarterback is there a backup plan there? What do you make of what they're going to do at quarterback and what the long-term plan is at that position?
Yeah, that is the billion-dollar question with them right now, just because I don't think, I think that they've had, as much as, the people on the radio, people in my job have talked about kind of the long-term viability of Geno Smith as their starter. I mean, they're not blind to that. They have those same questions, I believe, and that's why, they structured that last contract the way that they did, which was, the 3-year, $75 million extension that was structured in a way that would have allowed them to move on after that first season. So after 2023, it would have allowed them to move on as early as the 2024 offseason with, pretty manageable dead cap hits, if they felt like, either Geno Smith really regressed and or if a better option came along. So, Geno's been, I would say, pretty good, but not great since then. He's had his inconsistencies that we all know about with the interceptions and some of the sacks that he takes too. And, but the better option hasn't come along. And I think they were hoping that Sam Howell would be that. I mean, when they made that trade, they didn't really come out and say it publicly, I think because they wanted to, throw their support behind Geno after kind of being non-committal publicly to him early in that last offseason. But I know a lot of people in that building thought that there's a chance that, Sam Howell could eventually replace Geno. That obviously did not happen. And there's nothing that Sam Howell showed last offseason would, between training camp and that disastrous relief appearance in December against the Packers, nothing that he showed would, I think, give anybody confidence that he could be that guy. I think he could be a very good backup, and, maybe he could eventually develop into kind of a low-end starter, but I don't see viable replacement unless you want to go slog through a 5-12 season and end up picking early in the draft next year, which they don't want to do that. So, yeah, what is the long-term plan? That is a great question, and I don't really have an answer to you, and I don't think this draft presents a lot of great answers either, unless you want to take a flyer on, somebody like Jackson Dart or Quinn Ewers in, the second round, something like that. But even then, you're still probably committing to Geno for the season and hoping that one of those rookies could, maybe develop into that. But yeah, it is the $1 million question with them right now.
How hot is the John Schneider seat with this draft? Like, how important is this draft for John Schneider? It feels like people up there are starting to, if they're not already, be in the camp of like, okay, McDonald's defense clearly made the step. The ownership group has been fine because they love the Seahawks. A lot of these draft picks have been questionable for many. I'm curious how hot is that seat for John Schneider going into this coming season, going into this year's draft? They're sitting at 18. Where is all that at?
It's always a hard question to ask because I think Jody Allen is the most mysterious owner in all of the NFL. And, it's pretty easy to get a read on what Jerry Jones is thinking. And in terms of like media availability, those are the two opposite ends of the spectrum. And so it's hard to know like what Jody Allen is going to be thinking. I would say that any owner, if they trade DK Metcalf, and if that ends up as poorly for Seattle as it did for, John Robinson and the Titans a couple of years ago when they traded A.J. Brown to Philadelphia, then, yeah, something like that. I could see that, really ownership really looking, poorly on that. But, I do think that that Schneider I would imagine that he bought a lot of, points and maybe even some grace with Jody Allen with the way that Russell Wilson trade went down a couple of years ago and just how much, frankly, the Seahawks fleeced Denver in that trade and had the foresight to know that Wilson was declining and then negotiated. Schneider did, a hell of a deal with his Broncos counterpart. So, but the fact of the matter is if Jody Allen could move on from Pete Carroll, then she could move on from John Schneider. So it's just really hard to say with any level of confidence, like what it would take, how bad this season would have to go for that to happen, just because we've never heard from Jody Allen.
Hey, we haven't either
Same
in
here.
Portland. Very
Yeah,
similar.
I know, you guys know about it. You guys know all about it.
We are very aware of that
We've
one.
at least heard that she cares about the Seahawks and loves football, whereas
Yeah.
like in the NBA, the team tells us she cares, but like,
I just not quite sure.
I don't know what to say.
Any cool new additions to the boat?
New additions to the boat. Let's see. I'm looking around. Not really. No, my girlfriend, for Valentine's Day, we painted pictures of each other. And let's just say that the picture she drew of me was a lot better than the one that I drew of her. So that's featured prominently in my living room right now. But other than that, no real additions.
So painting in a boat, it obviously makes one come to this question. Did she paint you like one of her French girls?
That's a reference. What is that? To Titanic?
Yeah.
Is that right?
There you go.
I've never seen it. I've never seen the movie.
You've never
I just
seen
know
the
reference.
Titanic?
Never seen the Titanic.
Never seen it. No,
Wow.
your jaw would drop at the list of famous movies I have never seen, and I want to be a guest on this program again, so I'm not going to tell you some of those movies. But Titanic is one of them.
That's
We
okay.
don't shame. Hey,
We
we're on the trust tree
there's
here.
no
Brady.
movie
It's
shame.
okay. Yeah,
And,
no movie shaming.
I want you to be back, so I hate just telling. It's basically I was asking if she painted you nude.
Yeah, we get a naked Brady Henderson on the wall.
No,
Okay.
fully clothed,
Okay.
thankfully.
No tarps
Nobody
off,
needs
nothing
to
like
see.
that. No.
Flannel and
No.
jeans, huh?
Yeah. That's a good looking photo.
No, we keep it PG rated here
Okay.
on my boat.
There we
There
go.
you go.
I like that.
Brady Henderson covers the Seahawks on his boat for ESPN at Brady Henderson on Twitter, one of our favorites. He may not have seen the Titanic, but he's doing great reporting on the Seahawks, and go give him a follow and read his reporting on what's going to happen in the DK Metcalf situation. Sorry about the tires, Brady, but glad you got a boat, and let's do this again soon.
Yeah, I heard that Titanic sinks at the end of the movie. Is that right?
It does.
I didn't want
yeah.
to say that either, but
Yeah,
you know,
it does, yeah.
spoiler alert.
Sorry to spoil it for anybody who hasn't seen it like me.
Brady,
All right,
come
you
on,
guys-
man. There. Good stuff, Brady
Just don't
Henderson.
go on a little sub to go check it out. Doesn't end well for them
Don't go.
either.
Don't go down there. Don't go down to the bottom of the water there. So he thinks, look, a little bit of ruffled feathers behind the scenes. DK maybe looking at Vegas. He threw Vegas out as an option. We talked about them earlier in the sweepstakes. And this is one of those, it's very similar to the way I talk about Portland finding a star in the NBA. It's like, I understand that it's not an easy thing to do. Like, you just, hey, let's go find a star, build a team around him. Like, I understand that it's a very difficult thing to accomplish. If I were a Seahawk fan, I would have such a hard time with just constantly thinking about, what are we doing at quarterback? What are we doing?
How many teams say that, though?
Oh, a ton of them. They're not alone in that category.
You should count during the break how
many teams
you
are
would
saying
say in your mind.
If I was a fan of that team,
Yes.
I'd be saying, what the hell are we doing at this position?
Also, I would be so bad at painting my wife. She would
I would
be
be too. It'd be terrible.
offended by it.
I did one of those paint and date things one time with my
Where
wife.
They give you like a vase
canvas.
of flowers and you paint whatever's up there.
Yeah, they give you like a glass of wine.
I've never done that.
That's terrible. I have no artistic bones in my
I'm
body.
so bad at drawing and painting.
Terrible. My wife's actually relatively good at it.
Me too.
And so they get done, you're like, oh, great, cool. I look like a fourth grader.
Yeah,
Can't even color within the lines here.
Stick figures.
She actually painted me a
That's our
portrait
family.
of Ken Griffey Jr., one of his famous swings. Like, my wife is really good, so
Yeah.
I just don't even try.
That's a great gift.
That's
it's
badass
great,
gift.
and it's on like a sound panel in my room.
That's
too,
cool.
So it's really